Welcome, everyone. Let's talk about media and communication. The Line is a groundbreaking and controversial urban project in Saudi Arabia, envisioned as a seamless blend of artificial intelligence, sustainability, and connectivity for a post-oil future for the nation. Today, we welcome Linda Kopitz from the University of Amsterdam to explore how care, technology, and urban imaginaries intersect in this ambitious vision. Through the lens of care, we'll interrogate how technology can shape urban futures and how the concepts of connectivity and interconnection might not be as synonymous as they might seem at first glance. Hello, Linda. Welcome to our episode.
Thank you.
I guess we can start off by asking you what inspired you to use the line as your research focus to explore the intersections of technology, care, and urban imaginaries.
Mm. So my starting point for this article was actually a news headline that I kind of stumbled upon. It's an article by a journalist called Jennifer Bell, and it was based on the initial presentation of the line, so in 2022. And the article had the headline, "AI will be the beating heart of the city." And there was something about this metaphor of the beating heart, the living, the organic for the artificial that kind of didn't let me go. And of course, the line is not necessarily unique. It's an expansive and very expensive project for sure, but it follows a long line of imagining cities that are more connected and in turn more adaptable, more livable, more sustainable. So these urban visions, they tend to kind of capture public attention for a while and then they disappear again. They're never built, they're never completed, kind of a thought experiment more than an urban reality. So I didn't necessarily want to focus on whether the line and the other projects that are connected to the line, so it's a huge project called NEOM altogether, whether these projects can or will ever be physically completely built. Instead, I kind of wanted to use the line as a starting point to explore the environmental politics that are embedded with urban representations and urban imaginaries.
And what were your key insights, particularly regarding the role of care and connectivity in the urban vision that's proposed through the Line project?
Yeah. So I'm using care and connectivity kind of as this dual lens to highlight that there's an entanglement between technology and sustainability, but also between organic metaphors and artificial environments, between virtual connection and physical exhaustion. So in a way, I'm tracing the promise that is embedded in the line. So one of the taglines of the line is to deliver new and imaginative solutions for, and then this is kind of implied, the physical, psychological, and environmental exhaustion of urban life via artificial intelligence and other technological solutions. So there is something here where it's a bit of an almost inevitable convergence between discourses of the sustainable city and discourses of the smart city. And in this intersection, I'm using the concept of care to kind of explore how care is strategically operationalized in the framing of the city. So care as connectivity and connectivity as care. And within NEOM, so within this special economic zone in Saudi Arabia, the line is kind of maybe the most visible and the most debated development, but it's also fully a manufactured landscape. It's literally raised in the desert as this green oasis almost. And that very much also raises questions about urban care as something that can be or has to be designed, manufactured, and commercialized. So these are the tensions that I'm trying to tease out in the article.
And you mentioned authors like David Pinder and Nick Dunn in your work. So could you tell us a little bit about the theoretical framework that guided your research proposal, and also building on that work, what were you hoping to add to the existing discourse around this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So both Nick Dunn and David Pinder, they very much almost have a historical perspective. So they both engage with urban visions, urban imaginaries as something that's not just momentary and not something that is either imagined or real, but something that is kind of always both. And that how we imagine cities um, has real consequences and tells us a lot about a historical moment, but it also tells us a lot about social, economic, cultural relations and power structures. So I think kind of using their work or building on their work to explore a very contemporary example as the line, still connected to this historical understanding, very much tells us something about how sustainability, but also how urbanity are literally built through media and with media.
Uh, how do you hope that your findings, your conclusions around this topic will influence public policies, architectural practice, or just individual perspectives on urban living and sustainability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in a way, in the discourses of the line, there are very almost tempting ideas. So one of the key framings of the line is that the environmental footprint of the city, of this linear design, is calculated to be 46 times smaller than that of the city of London. So London has roughly 9 million inhabitants. This is the same as the line will supposedly have. So 46 times smaller as an environmental footprint. That kind of sounds, it sounds great. But at the same time, there's also something that undermines thinking about alternative ways to live in and with existing urban and natural environments. So this tabula rasa approach, this getting rid of everything and creating something new, creating something very technological new, as the line kind of proposes, that takes away from almost imagining things to be different and maybe not centered around technology and commercial infrastructures. And I think this is exactly where then public policies, institutions, organizations, companies, but also we as individuals and we as researchers are challenged to quite literally imagine alternatives. And in the context of a project like NEOM, this might also extend to questions of responsibility. So international news headlines are continuing to point out the very real impact of the line and the exponential cost of a project like this. And with cost, we're talking financial here, but we're also talking material and human, quite literally. So there's some concerns that range from the environmental impact, but also the labor conditions on the construction side. And we're not even mentioning that this might have been an undeveloped construction site, but it wasn't uninhabited. So as something that is being built, not just this urban thought experiment, but something that is quite literally being constructed, we could then also ask what the responsibility of architects, of designers, of the artists involved in visualizing and realizing a project like this are.
On a personal level, what struck you the most or maybe surprised you about the narratives of promises surrounding the line?
Something that I didn't expect, that I was quite surprised as I kind of did this research to find out, is that there seems to be something in NEOM that is not just drawing attention from the crisis of existing cities to the promises of new ones, but there's kind of a shift away from physical space altogether. So in some of the promotional material that I was looking at, it's not always super clear whether this is supposed to be an alternative place or an alternative reality. So there's kind of something going on that feels very much like a video game, like an alternative reality that you can kind of technologically plug into. So there's this idea of soon to be physical on the one hand, so construction that is in progress. But on the other hand, there's also something that feels like it will always remain virtual. So there's an ambiguity basically between the physical and the virtual space that shines through in a lot of the materials that I'm discussing. And this line kind of between representing technology as something to be experienced within the city but also something to be experienced instead of the city, becomes more and more striking. So one of the other taglines of Neom is that Neom will be like nowhere else on Earth. And as I was writing this article, I kept on thinking, okay, in some ways, this also thinks like it will be nowhere on Earth. Like this is an urban vision that's very, very much untethered from the physicality of space, basically. And at the same time, like we talked about before, I think it's quite important to point out that this urban vision is very much powered by real geographic, cultural, material costs of its constructions. And later videos of Neom actually very much outline that as well. So there's a range of very short films now posted by Neom on their YouTube channel, for instance, that have this discourse of, okay, this is something that is in progress and under construction. And the first of these films actually has a voiceover that starts with Neom is real. So there is something where kind of the project itself also seems to realize that it's not always quite clear whether this is a fantasy, an idea, a vision, or something that will become reality. So this kind of tension I was quite struck by as I was researching this.
And it's really, really, really interesting. We've reached last question, and it's quite a tradition on our show here to ask the difficult task to our guests. If you want our audience to remember this discussion in no more than 2 sentences, what would you say?
Easy. I would say that one key thing to take away from this research and from this conversation is to maybe not shrug off promotional materials as just that, but instead to kind of embrace that visualizing seems to be increasingly crucial in realizing. So on the one hand, there's a challenge to be critical of the ways that places like the line in their becoming are visualized. But on the other hand, maybe there's also something hopeful in this. So how can we imagine the urban to be different, to be more sustainable, to be more caring?
Fantastic. Linda, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your research with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For the viewers at home, you can find all the resources and materials of this conversation on the Let's Talk About website. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our newsletter, and follow us on X at Cogitatu LTA. My name is José Batista, and I'll see you on the next one.